to A Joy to Be Me, a podcast sharing the magic of minerals, microbes, and a return back to nature's ways. Tune in to learn how to nourish yourself emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. It's time to reconnect with and deepen the fundamentals of human health so we can return to our wild state. I'm your host, Lydia Joy. Let's celebrate this wild ride we call the human experience. Well, hello, friends, and happy New Year's Eve, or possibly New Year. By the time you listen to this episode, I have been enjoying this end of the year time, this in-between space as we wind down the year, the time between the holidays, focusing on resting, cleaning up, taking care of my family, and reflecting on the year. You know, it's a great time. I don't know if you guys are doing this or not, but taking stock of like what worked well this year for me personally in my life, in my work. And definitely that had a lot to do with helping more people dial in their gut health and things that didn't work so well, such as Instagram for me this year. Figuring out what I need to drop and what I need to shift my focus to and so on and so forth, right? And I'm still in the middle of this process a bit, so there's definitely more to come on that front. But, you know, it was a year for me personally of a lot of recalibrating and stabilizing after so many years of major transition for me and my family. And this year I grew a small garden for the first time in 5 years. I joined a local CSA. Those were some of the little delights of my year this year because of the stability. And as I enter my 15th year practicing functional nutrition and only one kid left under my roof, I have more space and time to really, kind of tighten up my business foundations, get way more organized, and clear the space to create more. It really has been a wild ride navigating life as a single mom with, some pretty challenging years in there for a stretch, with the economy and juggling getting reestablished after mold devastation, going through all the things that we've gone through. But I am optimistic this year will be, a little more harmonious for us, productive, less stressful, and I don't know, perhaps I'll be able to take my family on a much needed vacation this year. I'm sure you're also sitting with your own end of the year reflections as well. And as we do this, we are clearing space to see what worked well and what we could do better so we can, enhance our growth and embrace growth as we move into the new year. As a Virgo sun, I have a Virgo sun, Sagittarius rising, and Aries moon. So I'm all about, planning, somewhat meticulous, not super meticulous, adventure. And I just have this kind of like fiery drive to always be pushing forward in some way. So today I want to dive into just some personal insights, kind of unpacking the lessons this year brought as I've observed my own life, my practice, and the clients that I've helped. So I can kind of lay the groundwork for a more intentional new year. So some of my biggest takeaways were around overconsumption, and I'm going to call it energetic space. So this year, I've personally really kind of like felt the weight of excess, of overconsumption. And I don't mean food. I'm talking about taking too much in all the ways, right? What we consume mentally or consumer wise or with our thoughts or, the things that we are consuming on a day-to-day basis. And there is way too much out there on the buffet of life, if you will. And it's really hard to ignore it. And at some point, all this too much all this overconsumption is going to wreak havoc somewhere else in our lives, right? And it's kind of like what we're seeing happening on the planet right now. There's just been way too much mass production, way too much industry, way too many chemicals, way too much of everything. It's like build, more, 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 more. And now we're just like hitting this point of like, holy shit balls. It's like an overflow. It's becoming quite catastrophic, in my opinion. To the point that it's really beginning to affect a lot of things, right? And so I don't know, this year it just really showed me where to tighten up my boundaries, to reduce consumption of things. Where is there too much consumption in my life that is unnecessary? Whether it's through the media of any kind or just like consuming information, too much information that I can't utilize, right? How has that taken up my time, my mental bandwidth, or just taken me away from using my energy on the things that matter the most? It's funny, I had someone ask me recently if I had any podcasts on fasting or if I knew anything about like the whole new Fasting Like a Girl. I guess there's a book and maybe a movement, who knows. And I didn't know about that. And I don't have any episodes on fasting because it's not something I really spend a whole lot of time on at all. But what I can say is if I were to teach on fasting, it wouldn't be about food. It would be about fasting from anything that takes up too much of your energetic bandwidth. Social media, YouTube, TV news, social engagements that don't support your wellness, doing things that are out of alignment, that you hate, that you've been conditioned to think you have to do, right? And I think of that saying that got kind of popular in the last couple years, especially around water. It's like, get a filter or become the filter, right? And we have to do this with the things that we consume that are not just water and food. We need to have a way to create a filter for ourselves. It's a metaphorical filter I'm talking about here. There's no tangible filter. We have to create our own filter. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so I've been fasting more in those ways for sure. Trying to take breaks from things that I just feel are too consuming in my life, right? I'm not talking real food, not so much. I've gotten to a point in my journey where, first of all, I never really spent much time on fasting. I know it's very trendy. I think it shouldn't be as complicated as it is. I personally eat when I'm hungry, and that can vary, and I have stable metabolism and all these things. So, my blood sugar's good, all that. It's not something that I worry about or think about. I just eat in a routine and a rhythm, and I trust my body's wisdom, right? Sometimes I naturally fast more and have less food, and sometimes I don't. So I think we have really overcomplicated the heck out of nutrition and eating and trying to find our way back to nature, knowing best. So that's why I don't really spend a whole lot of time with fasting. But when we fast from excesses, it is really the point. So fasting from excesses in our life, to simplify, filtering these things, we make room for other things that are far more important. We make room for insights. We make room for creativity. We make room for clarity. And so I just encourage everyone to sit with this question. What do you truly need to nourish yourself moving forward? And it doesn't mean just food, And that said, I want to talk about the foundations of growth and for healing. In my last few episodes and throughout this year, I emphasized the importance of building a strong foundation for your health. And so as we wrap up this year and head into the new year, I would love for you to consider where you're at in regards to my 7 pillars. It's a nice little checklist there for you. Quick reminder what they are. The 7 pillars for that kind of comprise the basis or that are like the fundamentals for our health involve the sun and light for our circadian rhythm. So optimizing your light environment and your light habits. Water seems obvious, right? Water is a big one. Air, your consumption of air and how you consume the air. Breath, your air and your breath. Not your air, the air. The air you breathe in your home, in the environment, and how you breathe. A lot of people are not breathing properly, right? Your airways even could fall into here. And then food and nourishment. So food is a big category, right? Like I love talking about nourishment and nutrition and food. Like to keep it simple. Movement. This is simple, but also overly complicated in our world. It shouldn't be, but it is. Movement. Where are you at? Are you moving enough for your body's needs? The next one's community, connection. So this is all about your relationships, how the close relationships you have and the support that you have. And then purpose and our embodied self, right? So these are all fundamental to human health and well-being. And each pillar can interact with all the elements of, the minerals, the microbes, the seasons, the cycles, and nature's ecosystem, right? So where can you check in with these things? Because they, are pretty crucial. And I want to say, just when you think your foundations are solid, there's either always more to explore or, maybe a recalibration to solidify them more. Like maybe you intellectually know and you've mostly like habituated some things, but you slipped here and there, or maybe, something has changed and you need to, reapproach it, right? So like this year I decided to do a little bit more for my light environment at night in the winter, right? So like I shifted some things. And so I feel like there's always room to hone in and deepen, right? We always can dig deeper. Like, every layer reveals new growth, right? So as we move into the new year, I'm saying all of this to remind us that there's plenty of foundational stuff to work on. That you don't necessarily need to know a ton more information about. And this can help us to not just grasp for new things that are about to come, because believe you me, there will be so many new and seemingly sexy diets and trends and gadgets and modalities and things that some people will get such FOMO about, or so tempted to think that they're the new, magic bullet for their health, right? And I will say, with the advancement in tech and research and AI, and goodness gracious, I am sure it is going to blow up way more than usual. And the thing is, you cannot possibly take it all and do anything with it. It's and integrate it enough, especially at the speed in which things are coming out, right? If you're paying attention to all the things in the health circles out there, which I think some people might try to do. I mean, I don't even do that, and I'm in this industry. I can't tell you how many times people told me this year about what's going on in the health circles that they assumed I knew about, but I did not know. It's called JOMO, you guys, joy of missing out. It's kind of awesome. We really have to prioritize what is important to us and conserve our precious life force energy, y'all. So, what foundations, after hearing that list again, do you feel that you could shore up rather than, jumping on any new bandwagons in 2025? Which leads me to want to talk about our environment, right? So, having the right environment. I had a conversation recently with someone about what success means, right? At least to me. And basically, the environments we cultivate so that we can be set up for the success that we are looking to have, right? And I don't think success is just about like achievements per se. It's about being able to create the right environment physically and energetically. And I was thinking about how our ancestors, my ancestors probably, we all have somewhat different ancestry, but like thinking back pre-industry and how we would have thought differently and what would success look like before these modern times that we're in. And I think that it would have been more to create an environment that was conducive to not just our family's survival, but for the next generation to also thrive, right? Because what was success to them? Success was ensuring that they could sustain their life now, but also, have healthy offspring. I mean, that was really important, right? That would have been more of a focus. That would have been more what success meant to them over money, career, built this whole building bigger, better, faster, more at the expense of who cares. I just want bigger, better, faster, more, mindset, right? It's kind of overly simplistic, I know, but I mean, if you think about it, it's just continuous growth without consideration for what the cost of that is. And I think we would have thought very differently about this. This would not have been success to us. It would have been seen as devastating in a lot of ways, right? So, and I just don't think a lot of modern humans are thinking with that like that anymore. Well, what does success really mean to me versus what does success mean in modern society, right? And so with that, we would have spent more focus on creating the environment that made us successful at being able to repopulate our ancestry, right? So the environment that you are living in has massive impact on your health success. And I'm sure each of us could look around and find areas of our current environment, our current life environment that's not conducive to the success of our well-being, and find ways to shift that or make changes. And sometimes it requires a really big shift. Not everybody wants that, but it's probably the thing that's keeping you up at night. That is what needs adjusting. So with that said, I just want to say, how can you think about this? Like, how can you make shifts to your environment as we head into the new year? You might already have something top of mind that's bugging you that requires a shift to your environment. This includes like your home, where you live, where you work, the environment that you're in at work, the environment that you're in when you are spending the most time in the relationships that you have or the social circles that you find yourself in. Is it conducive to the success of your well-being? Are they all conducive to the success of your well-being? And if there are areas that they are not, that gives you an opportunity to make a shift, right? And with that said, then we can talk about clearing space, right? I've been inspired by watching this house next to me that is getting renovated and gutted. It was run down. It was this rundown house. The property was like overly overgrowing with vines and trees and just stuff. You could tell no one had taken care of the property in a really long time. And this person bought the house and they're now clearing the space to, tear it down to the bare bones and like build it the way that they want. So he first went in, assessed the whole property. Then he started in phases to clear the land, to level the land, to get better access to the house so he could work on the house. Then he gutted it just to get down to the bones and be able to flesh it all out and start to rebuild. And like I said, it was just an elder man was living there with ailing health, and this had gone on for a really, really long time. So the clearing up process was quite intense. Now some people are here in this place in their health, right? This is like a picture of like where some people are at. And if we don't stop to assess this collective overgrown, or over consumptive or not able to clean up the clutter, right? And the collective damage of all of that unaddressed clutter, it's going to be really hard to recover, restore, rebuild. It takes a lot more work to do it if we're not staying on top of it, at least to some degree, right? So, and I'm saying all this, and I want to say that this act of clearing space that I'm talking about isn't just physical, right? It's really can also be very symbolic of like the emotional and mental and, energetic things that we need to clear to make way for the ability to have new come in that expands our growth, right? So it's going back to that, piece about fasting from what's unnecessary. And it just gives us a chance to see what needs to get cleared, so that we can make room for what we really want. And we talk so much about detox these days in the health and wellness space, but we don't include detoxing from the too muchness of the modern world and its excessiveness enough. So I love clearing clutter. And I think it's worth, visiting where in your life that you can do that. And we're having a thunderstorm right now, you guys. Happy New Year's. Wow. It's kind of cool. It's kind of weird to have a thunderstorm in December like this. All right. Well, the other thing I want to mention is why do some people not make progress, or why do some people feel like they can't seem to make progress? Why do some people feel like they stay stuck or stagnant or, can't get out ahead of things, right? I think it really boils down to a lot of what I'm saying is like, and having the actual safety in your body and the space in your life to dedicate to focusing deeply on healing and recovery. There's really a necessity of carving out the space, both literally and figuratively, to allow for the progress. Because, like, without that commitment and creating the space for it, it's very hard to focus more intently on our healing, right? Like, we could just like take a few supplements, try out a diet, and that's all great. And we all should definitely do that. But when the rest of our life, our environment, our other consumptions, our mental, emotional, spiritual state are, not considered, we won't make a lot of progress if we don't have the bandwidth, right? Or the voltage. I always talk about that, the voltage, the reserves. You have to create the space, make the room, and dedicate. If you have a massively stressful job that you hate, you cannot hurry your way to health with a gut protocol. You have to address the stress of your job too, or else it's like trying to bail out of a boat with holes in it in just one small bucket. Same is true if you have a relationship that is full of strife. You could eat like a strict diet and you not really feel like you're getting anywhere, because that relationship with strife is continuing a stress cycle for you, And if you don't get out of that stress cycle, you get the point. So when it comes to like mapping out our health journeys, or remapping out like where we want to go in for our health, since we're talking about the new year, it leads me to the whole like New Year's resolutions, right? Of course, I'm super not into them, but I do appreciate taking an honest look at what's working and what's not working so we can understand where we're at right now. Be honest, like take an honest look. Seeing what it is we don't want in our lives anymore and what we do want, so that we aren't moving through life blindly without intentionality. Right. Recently I had a client say, I've been operating on ignorance as bliss for the past 40 years. And I was like, he's like, yeah, I'm not into it anymore. Right. So, if we just have these continued checks and balances where we're mapping out where we want to go, it's a good thing, guys. In order to reach a new destination, we got to first understand our starting point. And this is what I help people do. We get clear on what's not working, what's going wrong, what's playing into it, where is there space for shifts, and what do we even want to accomplish, And then we can create a map to get there, right? So as we head into the new year, it's such a great time to get our bearings and plot our map for the journey ahead. And this isn't just about like setting New Year's goals and resolutions and such. It's really about just like recognizing where we are and what we need to navigate forward and actually make the progress that we hope to make. We might not even know what that progress is unless we sit down and try to kind of do a check-in, right? That said, I also wanted to mention the top 5 episodes of 2024 on the podcast. As I, was looking back to see, what did go well and what did you guys like the most, from what I shared. And, the first one was the episode called Let's Talk About Probiotics. This was my perspective on why we need to consider probiotics in the modern world. My favorite one to start with, and then lots of good insight. So you can, really consider the big picture of your healthscape when it comes to considering probiotic use. I think there's a lot of confusion out there, a lot of overwhelm, and I tried to clear that up for you in this episode. Then I talked about leaky gut. This is a topic that's been in the backdrop of my work for a really long time, but I never put together an episode on it. So this one's really key for the optimization of your health is gut repair. And so we have to think about leaky gut because it's really prevalent. So it's a core foundation that I work on with all my clients in some manner. And I'm not talking about like, when I say leaky gut and gut repair, I'm not just talking about like doing parasite protocols and killing things in your gut. I'm talking about rebuilding the structure and function of your mucosal barrier, your gut lining, and then rebalancing your microbes to increase your function. So that's a pretty cool episode if you haven't spent any time on this topic. And then, of course, I had to talk about histamine because it just seems like everyone's dealing with histamine, imbalances and whatnot. So I dug into that. It's definitely something that I've, dealt with myself. I just am seeing it on the rise ever more. It's wild. But my hope is sharing this will help people become more aware of it, how it could be impacting them, and some of what they can do to start thinking about a recovery plan. The next episode was POV, point of view, minerals in the spotlight, and a rant. I shared my mineral philosophy now that minerals are finally trending and everyone's an expert. And mineral balancing, is getting more into the spotlight than I've noticed over the last decade. I do believe we have some paradigms to shift so we can ditch a lot of confusion and overwhelm and let's get back to enjoying health in a more natural way. We got a lot of clutter to clear, a lot of deconditioning to do, but I just really want to see people get back to some semblance of simplicity. I shared the problems with our current collective groupthink and what we need to be thinking about for the big picture and long term instead. So if you're into the whole mineral balancing world, you might want to check that one out. If you are a mama, I did a podcast on, is it mom guilt or mom grief, and how we shape our children's health. I felt a message coming through that needed to be shared for the mamas. This was around Mother's Day. And it was just a conversation I wanted to open up to and just kind of like talk about the challenges today that, around raising healthy children. And I think a lot of women feel this mom guilt, they call it. But I think it's deeper. And I shared some perspectives and thoughts on that for the moms. So these conversations have been pivotal, and I can't wait to expand on them and more in the new year. So I hope you will check those out. And then looking ahead, in the new year, I'm not going to make big, wild promises or anything, but I am excited to be continuing on the podcast, putting out weekly episodes. I was doing bi-monthly for a while, or kind of just like as I could. Didn't really have the momentum that I do now. So I'm really excited about that. I'm feeling in a groove with this, and I enjoy this, putting the podcast out there for you. I'm deep diving into how I see things, my philosophy, the macro to micro stuff, along with just, trying to remind us that none of us likes to be formalized. And, we really need to be treated as individuals. And so lots more on that, more updates to my client course work that I have for clients and my HTMA work. I have a lot of updates to that I'm going to be working on this year. I'm really excited for that, to keep supporting my clients. I will have more openings for new clients this year than ever before. So if you're interested in deepening your health with me on your journey, definitely be looking out. And then I have just as of right now 2 mentorship spots for holistic practitioners that are working with HTMA in their practice. I'll be talking more about that soon, but that's the little bit of what I've got on the docket this coming year. Health is a habit, guys. It's a habit. It's not a given. We have to create it. And I want to leave you with a couple thoughts. We really can't limit ourselves to treating illness or disease, right? We really have to go beyond it. And we have to go deeper to understand the process and the causative factors that have led us to become unwell or have a disease or have a chronic illness, right? And it can be our ally if we learn to embrace it rather than fight against it. It's in the fighting against it that we find all the pain and hardship and challenge and difficulty and frustration galore. But if we can embrace it and learn from it and work with ourselves instead of fighting against what's wrong, we can do a lot better work and not be at war with ourselves. Healing isn't just about working on ourselves when we're unwell. It's about nurturing our growing health every day. I just turned 50 this year, you guys, and I gotta say, it's interesting to have this perspective of like, oh, now I know why people say things that they say, because, I had this fall this year and I fractured my foot and I tore some things, and, the recovery was interesting. It taught me a lot, and it made me realize like, oh man, if I ever fall again, I don't I don't want to have that recovery period. I want to bounce back, you know? And so it's made me really reevaluate how I view my daily habits and just shoring things up to shore myself up, right? So I really want to emphasize health is a daily habit. We don't want to wait until we don't have it or it's so bad. It's going to take all you've got to dig your way out of serious complications. I found a quote the other day that I liked. I can't remember where I found it. It was like reading a book and I was like, I think it was a book online and I really liked it. It says, "Do not mistake the acquisition of mere knowledge for power. Like food, these things must be digested and assimilated to become life or force. Learning is not wisdom. Knowledge is not necessarily vital energy. The student who has to cram through a school or a college course, who has made himself merely a receptacle for the teacher's thoughts and ideas, is not educated. He has not gained much. He is a reservoir, not a fountain. One retains, the other gives forth. Unless his knowledge is converted into wisdom, into faculty, it will become stagnant like still water." It's from a book called The Leaves of Gold by J.E. Dinger. I'm not sure. Well, those are my closing out of the year thoughts for you. I hope you found it helpful, and I appreciate you joining me on this end of year reflection. I hope you found some inspiration to clear space for your own growth as we transition to the new year. Please subscribe and share and leave reviews if you've enjoyed this podcast episode this year. It really helps. It really helps me out. And if you need support on your journey in 2025, you can learn more about my offerings on my website, my work with HTMA, my work with the gut support, and also coaching. So a huge heartfelt thank you to all of you who supported me in any way this past year, whether it was listening to the podcast, sharing your feedback, emailing in to thank me, share what my work has meant to you, or purchasing products and services from me, or even just following along on social media, dropping in and saying hey here and there. I really couldn't do this without you. Honestly, what would even be the point if there was no one to share this all with, right? So I'm looking forward to another year of podcasting, sharing, and supporting those of you who are on a mission to also, rewild your wellness and overcome your chronic health issues and build back better foundations for yourself and your families. So here's to building back better in 2025. Until next time, stay wild and well.